Welcome to the Restless Creatives podcast. Comfortable chats with inspirational creatives. Hosted by three self-confessed restless creatives, Lucy Hunter, Fiona Pickles and Bridget Girling. This week we chat with Ruth Ribeaucourt, an incredibly multifaceted entrepreneur inspired by her adoptive country France, and telling the stories of artistic creative women from around the world. Ruth's energy and vision, belief, humour and warmth shine through in this somewhat long episode, but we think you'll find, like us, that Ruth is irresistible.
Hello! Sorry about that. We have our gardener here once a year and he just started strimming right outside my window.
Sounds about right. We can't see
He wants to be on the podcast. You can't see me.
No.
Oh, that's because I'm an expert at Zoom.
Hey, there you are.
Oh, it's that
Hello.
beautiful room. Oh.
Yeah, we're just going to sit here and drool at your studio behind you.
It's all an illusion. It's all an illusion.
No, it's not. We've watched the IGTVs.
Well, no, it actually is genuinely all an illusion because underneath that paper, we had this huge leak. And underneath that paper, that whole wall is destroyed.
Yeah, but even where it's peeled off and it's like white, it still looks beautiful. So
that's called patina. Yeah. Patina that leak. Yeah. So I just couldn't look at it anymore, and it is my favorite room in the whole house, and I couldn't look at it. Oh. So I decided I was just going to. I said, like, to hell with it. I'm just going to cover the whole wall in the magazine and as many paintings as possible, and it's all I can see now, so I can distract.
Well, it's distracting me. I have to say. But it's lovely to meet you.
It's lovely to see you all.
Very lovely to see you.
You know, it's wonderful because you've been accompanying me, and this podcast has been accompanying me as I'm putting the magazine together.
Oh,
so
really? Oh my
I feel like I'm in your living room. This is
come in, just on a chair.
One day we will be able to do that, definitely.
Oh,
Yes.
Can you imagine? I can't wait.
We'll be a podcast on the road.
We will.
Oh,
watch out, world.
Yeah.
That would be amazing, but we just have to believe it's going to happen very soon. I mean, I know that you're all still in lockdown. We're fortunate enough that we're just under curfew, which it sounds like it's not so bad, but it is. I mean, we just don't go anywhere after 6 o'clock. But sure, you know,
I don't go anywhere after 6 o'clock anyway.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Lucy. It actually hasn't changed my life all that much. It's only, it's only when you don't get invited to dinner anymore. It's always a lunch invite, so it's fine. You get home in time for your supper and bed before 9, and it's all very civilized.
Sounds brilliant. So Ruth, you've got lots and lots of strings to your bow, really. And the girls were asking me just before, sort of, you seem to have lots of different Instagram accounts and, where you've come from. And obviously the magazine's a huge part now of what you do. But could we just go back a bit and talk about, well, because you had a corporate career, didn't you, to start with?
I did. I know that we have so much in common, you and I, Lucy. I'm sure we all have so much in common. But my first job out of college was with Walt Disney Studios in Ireland. So it was a tiny team, 4 people, and I headed up marketing and publicity.
Right.
So looking after film releases, so basically everything to do with the film that gets between it getting made and getting into cinemas.
Wow.
Well, yes, that was my dream job. And I started actually as an intern, and I just made myself indispensable. I learned how to make a really good cup of tea. and then I just happened to be in the right place at the right time as somebody else was moving on, and I got an assistant job, and I stayed there for nearly a decade.
Gosh.
And the only reason I left was I had my eldest, who's now 11, and just before going back after maternity leave, I discovered I had very bad autoimmune disease, Hashimoto's, which had knocked me for like 7, but I thought it was just, having a newborn and not sleeping properly. So that kind of my health was really thrown out of whack. And then I had a newborn at home. And then when I went back to work, it was just not the same. You know, it wasn't, I couldn't travel. My heart wasn't in that side anymore. And I just felt, it just wasn't a right fit for me anymore. And so luckily my husband is French, luckily. Well, that's how I ended up in France. I had to actually go fishing for a husband in France. There's no eligible men in Ireland. So that's why I was lucky. As luck would have it, he's French. And so we thought, oh, well, we could always move to France and try that out for a little while. And so it was also coinciding with the crash of the Irish economy, and he works in finance. And so his job was kind of being moved from 5 days to 3 days and back to 5. There was so much, it just wasn't very stable. And so that combined with my work situation, where I just felt that I could do with taking a little bit of time out to get my health back in order and look after my son. And then maybe the idea was to go back to the film industry eventually. So initially we were going to do a sabbatical and move to this little village and, take 6 months to ourselves and then, get back up on the corporate saddle as such. And that never really happened. We moved here and so where we live it's basically next door to the village where Peter Mayle wrote A Year in Provence.
Right.
Terrible. It's awful. It's really beautiful, and it's best of weather. We've got 4 seasons in a year, which is frankly, after 30 years of living in Ireland, was such a shock to my system. Come like the 1st of March, the sun would come out and I would be out in my vest top, and then I'd realize, oh, it's actually going to be sunny tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And so now after 11 years of living here, I'm so blasé. It's only April. I'm not putting my winter clothes away just yet. You get used to it really quickly.
Pacing yourself.
Yes, exactly. So when we moved here, and there's an awful lot of artists in this area. And so I'd given up my career. I had no driving license. I had a 1-year-old. And so I was a stay-at-home mother, and I had no career options because I didn't have a driving license. So I couldn't even go and get a job in the local village as a waitress if I wanted to. So it was quite a crazy time because I just thought, wow, okay, 10 years with Disney. That was it. That's what I've got to give. And it was good while it lasted. And I'd always made jewellery as a child. And so at some point, after moving over to France, now I had been married for a year and I dated this French man for 4 years before that.
Is this the same French man?
The same French man. Well, I didn't date that. I didn't even like French men. I actually dated a lot of Spaniards. So there's only one French man in my past. And his name is Raphael. And so at one point I realized, like a complete idiot, that my husband's family makes ribbons. And I suppose I'd heard that they made ribbons, but I never really made the connection that, the kind of ribbons that they made were like these incredible ribbons that for haute couture and the Vatican. And wow. My idea of a ribbon was something you wrapped either a bouquet with or a really nice fancy present, that you didn't deserve. And that was the extent of it. And so at Christmas time, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go ask for some ribbons, thinking I'll get a roll of black satin polyester or something like this. Was the extent of my imagination. And Raphael's grandmother said, no problem. And she went into the cupboard in this beautiful apartment in Saint-Étienne, and she opened up the cupboard and she got this little box out and said, now this is what the children play with, so take whatever you like. And she gave me this box, and it looked in the box, and I just had no words. They were all small little samplers that would have probably been in like museum worthy books. Wow. And these were what the kids were playing with. And they were like, not embroidered, woven with like real gold and real silver thread and hand cut velvet. I kind of stood there going, oh, and like, sorry, I'm Irish. I would probably curse at him, so I'm trying not to curse.
Don't worry.
I might have cursed, and I said, "Oh, now I want to do something. I've said I want these, and now so I had no idea what to do with them." But that was the start of an adventure of making jewelry, textile jewelry, and that was kind of like really got the ball going for me on discovering textiles and handmade and antiques and the brocante in France. Because I started thinking, oh my God, well, there's this whole world and that I had no idea about. And then it was kind of like peeling back a layer, and then you discover lace, and then you discover silk, and then you discover, the 18th century printed textiles. And it was I just kind of felt like, wow, this whole story has been out there and I knew nothing about it. And it was just the most incredible few years of just learning, like an apprenticeship, which is combining stories and textiles and history and really like learning so much about what makes France in terms of their heritage and from the patterns and the colors and that set me off in this whole new path of antiques and textiles, and then meeting artists and makers and creatives who are all very much aligned in the same way, who all love these stories that these objects hold and either want to transform them or give them a second life, or they live with these textiles, that's how, there's just so many different tangents in my life, but that's how I got a camera for my 30th birthday, which is 10 years ago. And I had never taken a photograph before then. And because I'd never really had anything that I wanted to take a photograph of, I think, looking back. And this was something that I not only wanted to capture, but I really wanted to share because of how incredible it was to me to learn and discover all of this. I thought, well, I can't be the only one who knows absolutely nothing about this and who might want to see all the things that I'm witnessing. Because I think this is the other side, is that Ireland was so poor for so long that even, I think I used to go junking with my dad. And when I say junking, I mean like literally junk. Like, we would go on a Sunday to the local junk shop next to Curry's and PC World. And I would think this was like treasure. And so like my visual vocabulary of what treasure was very limited. And so like going to the antiques market, and actually, no, like I started at the rip-off merchants end, where everything is incredible. And then slowly made my way to find like the secret sources. And it's just, your mind just gets more and more blown by how beautiful things were. And that's the thing, that France was such a wealthy country that they had silk and they had ribbons. I mean, where my husband's company, family company was the world home of ribbon making, historically speaking. They actually invented the ribbon because the king at the time, don't ask me which one, it's probably a Louis of some sort. I forget, I am the worst at knowing which one it was, but he decreed that only royalty could wear pattern, and that all the commoners had to wear solid colors. And so they found a way around this by creating very slim pieces of fabric, so underneath the kind of level of that was in the law. And that's how the ribbon was invented. And that's how they introduced pattern into their clothing. So that's also why it became such a, very, very wealthy industry to be in. And that's at that point where my husband's family came into it. They were industrialists, and they thought they saw an opportunity, and they went into ribbon making. And the sad thing is that they're probably, before, the entire town used to make ribbons, and now there's only about 3 or 4 making ribbons, and we're the only ones making ribbons with these beautiful old jacquard métiers in French. I think it's jacquard looms. Right. So sorry, I've gone off on a tangent again. No,
it's really interesting.
There's just all these layers that kind of connect me to what I'm doing. And then so I started taking photographs, and that just brought me on to this whole other new side, which is storytelling, essentially. And I realized I've always been storytelling, but but not to this extent. So it's kind of to be able to share the stories of the people that inspire me. And I have been doing that for other publications for the last 3-4 years. Entirely self-taught and literally learning on the spot. But to the idea that I can take these stories and share these stories of mostly really for the last 3-4 years of women, female creatives, and a lot of them women who've only really kind of gotten into their stride or started creating after they've raised kids and the kids have grown up and now is their time. That has been like a huge privilege to me, because I feel like, and especially, you know, when you've stepped off the ladder to go back onto, to try and find yourself, find your voice, or find your way, you can just, it can be devastating for your confidence on a good day.
The ladder's changed, hasn't it?
Oh, I mean, so much has changed. And then you feel, well, what's the point? You know, so many of these other young ones, the young ones, I'm 40, I can say that now. All these young ones are, you know, coming up and they've got their Instagrams and they've got, you know, their, God love them, TikToks and their Snapchats. And like, where do I fit into this? And so I've seen so many women in that position. And so the joy of spending a day with them and taking photographs in their studios and then sharing their story with the world has just been completely unplanned, but the biggest gift for me. And I learned so much. So with every time I went into a studio and shot that story, I also grew as a photographer. And I also then learned how to tell that story better. So there's always been this evolution and growth. And
there's like a synergy, isn't there, when you meet?
Oh, I just love it.
Yes.
I love it. And you get something and they get something. You know, and I feel like and like really genuinely that their story then becomes part of my this is gonna a textile metaphor, part of my patchwork, or you know, but they are. I just feel like I then carry them with me, and because often I also then translate their story. So I mean, I became literally overnight a photographer and a writer, which I had never ever thought of that I would ever be or do, but it just happened so naturally. And so I get to tell these stories and I learn so much from them and I can reflect them onto my story. And you just see a whole other side of people and you see how far they've had to come to get to where they are now. And, you know, a lot of them have, you know, achieved despite many obstacles. And those are the stories that I just love to share. And then to see, and I never control this, but when we can find, you know, if and when they get a cover, I mean, I never know when they're going to get the cover, for example, on the magazine, but I'm just so happy when they get the cover, because it's, as a woman, you know, so many of us feel that we become more and more invisible, and there it is, there's their story, and it's worthwhile, and it's meant to be shared, and it's meant to be celebrated. And so that for the last 3 or 4 years has been the biggest joy for me. I'm going to complete accident. And now I'm creating my own magazine, which is another complete lunatic thing to do.
Amazing, fabulous.
I mean, like I don't have enough to do, but
you're restless. You're a restless creative.
You are our absolute archetypal restless creative.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like, I did get an experience. I got this incredible experience last year of creating a magazine from scratch. And
I mean, where do you even start with that?
No.
Well, you see, I was a collaborator for a big American magazine group, which is very established. And I went off and I had this great 24 hours with two major Swedish creatives, Linda Lommelino and Olivia Ruby of Adlaster Food Textures. And I took the train up. I crossed practically all of France to get to them. They were on the top west coast. And I arrived, and from the moment I arrived, we just talked and laughed and took photographs and talked and laughed and ate. Oh my God, we ate so much good food because Linda Lommelino is like the cake queen. I mean, I don't even like rhubarb, and she made this rhubarb tart, and I was like, I was tasting heaven. I think I even had seconds, and I remember even saying to her, I don't even like rhubarb. And then we came back from that, and I was like, it was like somebody had charged me, or hooked me up to a vitamin drip, or put solar panels on my back. I just thought, okay, I got it. I got to do it. I got to do it. And it was on that kind of moment. I didn't think of any of the practicalities or the, what might go wrong with that idea or, any of the work that would go into it. I just thought, okay, I know all these people. I want to read their stories. How hard can that be? And and I pitched the idea, and the editor said yes, and she said, okay, you do it. And so
and you thought,
and you've got 2 weeks.
No, I actually had loads of time, which was I had like 6 or 8 months of that. Okay. And I think also, I mean, in fairness, I didn't have any risks really. I wasn't financing the magazine. I knew already the stories. I actually had too many stories. So I had to cut it down. That was the problem, like deciding which stories were the ones to go and creating an entire, not a product, but something that totally made sense as a whole. And so that was an experience. And as all my other businesses, because I forgot to tell you about 3 of them. But it's fine because they no longer exist. They evaporated when COVID arrived. They just kind of, well, no, they're on hold.
They're on hold. They haven't evaporated.
They're on hold. I organize experiences, which are workshops, which are about empowering and connecting and bringing women, mostly women, together through storytelling and photography and food. And
is that my French Muse?
Yeah, so that's the French Muse, and which is something which I just absolutely love. And we had the biggest one planned for last summer. I mean, the biggest one. First of all, it sold out before I even announced it, which had not happened before on the previous 2. And then all of my mentors who had come already all begged to come on this one. So I think we were like 35 people at the end, and everybody was just coming. There's I'll wash the dishes and I'll cook the dessert, and so all these women just wanted to be a part of it because they were really magic. And what made them magic was the fact that it was women cross-generational. So we had like a 27-year-old animation, like professional animator from LA. And we had a 70-year-old retired lawyer from Australia come, and everything in between. And so, it was, and I think we had something like 16 different countries as well. So it was this whole literally melting pot. And we would come together and we would just photograph stuff all day long and then visit like artist studios and then, just hang out and go for a swim. It was Provence, it was roasting hot. And then we would, come together and we do a lot of eating basically. And I just loved it. But I think not just until we can travel safely, but the magic of it was bringing all those age groups together and all those different means, basically. Not everybody could afford it, but everybody was in a position that was a little bit more comfortable, that they could maybe see it as an investment. But right now, I think it's just there's so much turmoil. I don't want to put people under pressure. I want people to arrive over and be really comfortable and really open and be able to be there and to have that mix. So it's on pause until we can eventually get to the point where we can make it happen again. So it may be 2-3 years time. I mean, I'm not in a rush there's a lot of people that do workshops and they are and can be a real money maker. But for me, really, I'd rather do it and do it really well and have people be really comfortable than just keep churning them out. So we'll see. So I suppose that for me was a way of connecting people, and I really miss that. Like, oh God, don't we all? Just connecting with other. Really, I mean, I love women, and I don't have anything against men. I just love women, and I love helping women and connecting women, and I just think, that we can be our best allies in this creative process and collaborate and share our knowledge. And so I really miss that. And so Fair Magazine is a way to do that. Until we can, well, it'll still go on, but it's a way of bringing people and bringing these stories together until we can meet physically again. I mean, Lucy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Lucy Hunter.
Yes, funnily enough.
Lucy Hunter is in our first issue.
I know. So
We
honoured.
may have had
so honoured.
a little heads up on that.
Yes, and I'm so like, literally Lucy was like the top of my list of
Oh, stop.
but no,
Amazing
I love your story. I love your story. And I think there's so much for everybody to learn from your story about finding your voice and, you know, and not being afraid. Well, you can be afraid, but just to have the courage to deviate from your path, you know, which is really hard to step off a ladder of a nice job with, you know, a salary and a comfort, and to step into the unknown. It's not something that we're ever told that we should do or we're encouraged to do. So it can be scary, but it can also be like exhilarating and incredible. And
that's why it's important, isn't it, to actually tell these stories of these people, you know. So as you say, other people can think. I had after the podcast I did with Botanical Brouhaha, where I talked about it, and I had so many people reaching out afterwards just to say, oh my goodness, you know, I've got the same story, and I've you know, you've really inspired me to have that courage. And you think, gosh, I feel so humble about that. So, but that's what you're doing now with this magazine as well, you know, to bring, showing how people from all different parts can, you know, come together and create something.
Well, I want the stories. I mean, I think there's some, and I buy these magazines and I'm not going to say which magazines, but there are some beautiful magazines out there that show these incredible homes, but they're very aspirational. And there's not much underneath the surface. And sometimes even photographers go in and somewhat erase the person from those homes, you know, by tidying up and sterilizing and those are not the stories that I want to read. So I want to share honest, intimate stories of creatives and how they found their voice, essentially, because it's exactly what you did in that podcast, is to show people that it's not that because you've been doing this since you were 21 years of age that you're at this stage now. It's just, you know, that everyone has a different story. And I do think that, you know, this linear path to careers is very much changing. And I think COVID is forcing us to be more flexible. And for people that haven't taken these divergent paths, it must be terrifying. I feel like I had like a practice run or several practice runs on adapting. And I was very lucky that I had all these other things kind of to fall back on when everything just crashed. But I think when you have been so focused on getting to the top of your career and to be the best at that, and I think it must have been just such a trauma to have all that dissolve, you know. And so I am really lucky that I kind of feel that I've gotten very good at adapting. I mean, I don't say listen, I was crying and I was like, there was snot coming out my nose most of the days, and I was in the worst of humor having to homeschool my two kids. But we managed to get through it. It's just nuts to think that it's been a year already. But
I'm sensing there must have been some pretty inspirational women in your childhood.
Well, I was very, very lucky. I've had some time to look back and see what the hell, where did this all come from? And and I'm like, why am I? Because I'm literally, I think I just like creative studio porn. Like that is my what's the word? My weakness. And I was thinking about it. And so my mum, when I was about 12, so I was born in Northern Ireland. I grew up in the Troubles. And when I went to boarding school for secondary school, because at the time you either went to the local Catholic school or the local Protestant school, depending on your religion. And that was it. You know, there was segregation from your education onwards. And so my parents sent me to boarding school in the Republic of Ireland. And as I was going to boarding school, my mother opened an art gallery. And she opened an art gallery in a border town. And I think, if I'm thinking back correctly, her first exhibition had contemporary, like the top contemporary artists from the north of Ireland and the Republic of Ireland in the same exhibition. And if you think this sounds just nuts to say it out loud, but it was the first time anybody had ever done that.
Yeah.
We were talking about a time when nobody crossed the border.
Mm.
It was like no man's
dangerous. It
land.
was properly dangerous.
It was, well,
People
I mean,
were dying.
yeah. And also, I mean, also my normality was like anytime you'd go down to Dublin for the day, which was usually just before Christmas, you know, you'd get a hot chocolate and you'd go to the Kilkenny shop, but you'd cross the border and you'd have a gun pointed at you and, you know, where are you going and what are you doing and when will you be back? That was just so normal for us. So my mother started this gallery, and I basically would be brought along to, you know, into artist studios, and I go to their homes, and then on anytime she's doing an exhibition, I would be serving wine, which is probably not very legal as a 13-year-old. I think wonderful experience, you know. And then after the exhibition opening, I would be, you know, we'd all go for dinner, and I would be sitting right next to the artist and be treated like an adult and be in part of this conversation. And so we did have a really open, creative upbringing where art was not taboo, where art was something that you didn't, you know, need to understand to enjoy. I mean, and so I think really the only reason my mum had the art gallery is because she loved art. So she bought a piece from every exhibition. And so our house was coming down with art. And I see that in my home now. Literally I don't even have walls for all the art because I buy a lot of antique art paintings as well. But yeah, so there was from my teenage years, this fascination with creativity, and not necessarily, there was no boundaries. Like it was a possible job option, if you know what I'm saying, you know, even though I did witness that it was really tough to make a living. And I chickened out of going to art college myself because I didn't want to be mediocre. I was terrified that I would be crap. So I was like, I don't know if I want to discover that I'm actually not super talented, that I'm just really crap. So I'm just not going to go. I'm going to go study business and French.
Something completely different.
That I can manage. That I know I can do. So yeah. So I grew up with artists, and then
I guess the difficulty with art is, whichever area of creativity you're in, whether somebody likes it or not is so subjective. Whereas if you can speak French or understand business, that's not subjective. You can or you can't.
I mean, I'll be really honest, it didn't challenge me whatsoever. I studied in Trinity College, Dublin, which I loved. I think I went to 1 hour of lectures in the first year. I had been at an all-girls boarding school, so I was too busy
having a good time.
First year university.
For Frenchmen.
French kissing. Yeah, that was the French part of my degree. Very, very good. I should have got a first. I don't know why. No, I went actually to study. This is very serious now. I went to study my third year in France, Erasmus, and everybody else was applying for, you know, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I can't even remember half the names, but I hadn't even applied to a single one of those interviews. And I felt like I was going to be found out. But when I was in France, we had it was like a Master's of Business Administration. And there was one particular course which is called Masters of Arts Administration, Cultural Institutions, and this type of thing. And for that, we spent a week in the Louvre, like in their marketing department. We spent a week with a film production company. And it was just, I mean, I was so naive. I had never thought, well, also we had never been told that that's how you can apply your degree. Yeah. You don't have to work in a bank or a financial institution. You could also apply your business know-how in a creative, artistic domain. But those were not what was being pushed on us. You know, we were being pushed towards accounting and, oh God.
The traditional stuff.
And it just left me cold. And so that year I thought, oh my God, it just opened up this whole world of possibilities. And so another serendipitous thing happened. I came back from the Erasmus year, and one day a phone call came into the house and my mom answered, and someone had set up an internship in Chicago at a film production house. And like a week before going, decided they didn't want to go anymore. And so this person was saying, listen, would Ruth like to do this? It's, it starts in a week. And, and I said, yeah, oh my God. Yeah, bring it on. So I had no visa. I had not saved any money. I had no plans really, but I just thought, and I think that's actually like the story of my life. I just say yes.
Yeah.
And figure it out later. And so that's a whole other story, but that's like my favorite saying is like, it's a very long story, but let me tell you all about it. But I ended up going over, and the owner of the founder of the company is an Irish woman who got an internship to the Chicago Institute of Art years and years ago and loved it so much and decided to set up this huge, big post-production house. I mean, it was like 4 stories. It was so prestigious, award-winning. And here was this woman at the helm, and she didn't have to be, she's really one of my mentors in life. She didn't have to be a bitch to be respected. She was just honest and generous and really smart. And she just commanded this team of incredibly talented, there was photographers, there was editors, there was filmmakers. And that was also someone who really changed my life. And I thought, wow, okay, first of all, there's a woman who can be running this company and who's respected and doesn't have to be this awful, brutish. Yeah, you don't have to be to be respected. And her name is Maggie McGee, in case she's listening. And she was like literally, she is my idol. And really she is the start of my whole story of seeing myself as a female in the world of arts, in business, in a business capacity. Yeah. So
that's really fascinating, actually.
Loads of stories. But and she's since I was actually there around the time of September 11th. And I would have stayed longer, but I came home a little bit earlier than that. But so she really was important. And the reason I got the job in Disney, and this is another funny story that nobody probably knows. Well, I came back from America, and I came back and I was like, I can do everything. I am the best. I have got a great sense of humor. I mean, I was like, I probably was unbearable. And I wrote my CV. I thought, I'm going to get a job. And I went and I applied for jobs, and they wore me down. And eventually I looked up and I saw this woman that looked exactly like Maggie McGee, my mentor. And her name is Trish Long. And she was the head of marketing for Walt Disney Studios at the time. And in my mind, Maggie, number 2, that's for me. That's a sign. I'm going to go knock on her door. And literally, that's exactly what I did. I graduated on one day. I don't even remember what day it was, but let's say I graduated on the Friday, or no, the Thursday. And then on the Friday morning, don't even think I changed out of my graduation outfit. I arrived at the door of Walt Disney Studios and buzzed on the buzzer. And I said, I'd like to meet Trish Long, please. And there's like
no, I don't have an appointment.
That was it. The pause on the other end was, have you got an appointment? And I was like, no, but she'll want to see me.
Because I'm so important.
I mean, I don't know. So this was to become my future team. They allowed me up. I don't know why. They
were probably fascinated. Who is this person?
Let her up. So they let me in. I didn't see Trish Long. She had locked her door. But they allowed me into the office, and these are my future colleagues. But so I walked over, and the marketing assistant at the time was a wonderful woman called Anna. And I gave her my CV. And Anna would remind me years later that anytime she was feeling down or sad, that she would take out my CV and it would just make her crack up because it was so obnoxious. So literally that's the story of my life. I just think, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I just
what's the worst that can happen? Let's just go and do it.
About the constant, it's kind of the story of Fair Magazine. I had a budget I had thought it out. I was like, am I going to bankrupt my family? Maybe, but hopefully not. So I was going,
and that's all I needed.
And I kind of option 1, option 2, option 3. And so if I don't go too crazy, we should be okay. And then, I mean, all of these, the last few weeks, we just signed with an international distributor. So our first issue is going to be going into Barnes and Noble. Barnes and Noble, who just placed an order for my entire print run. So that budget just went like up out the window. So yeah, it's on. And if I had known, and also that, I mean, I was talking to Lucy about this, the terms of working with an international distributor and going into newsstands is that you don't get paid for 300 days.
300?
300 days. So any of my issues that are sold in the US, I will not receive the percentage of the sales of those until next February.
Gosh.
Oh my word.
So
Yes,
if I had known that, I would never. I don't think I see. That's the thing. If I'd known that, I probably would have said, "Listen, it's not worth it. I'm not going to do my own magazine. It's too much." But because it kind of came along, it snuck up on me, and it was like, "Ooh, 300 days. Sure, that's
that's not long.
That's not even a year."
No, but like if I had known that up front, I probably would never have done it. It would have been the risks would have been too high. And now we have a team and we have a magazine and we have all these people relying on us. So I'm like, okay, let's go for it. So, but
It's going to be wonderful.
I am joking, but there is like a huge amount of goodwill and support. And I mean, I was just talking to Ruth Stedman, who's a writer. She's going to write a piece, she's a beautiful writer. If you want her Instagram, I think it's by Ruth Stedman, and she's a storyteller, and she really is like a storyteller, like the troubadours. And one thing she said to me last night is, in the age of Instagram, we're trying to reach so many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people with our work and our photography and our writing and our words. And I said, in the past, a troubadour would really only be interested in reaching the 5 kilometer radius, and going from village to village, just telling those stories and really making a connection with people on a one-to-one basis. And so that really resonated with me, that that we if we can just touch that 5 kilometers and really do it really, really well, we don't, that's what counts. But she's going to write a piece called Crafting the Soul, and talking about finding your voice and creating the circumstances that your stories can reveal themselves. And I was like, where do I sign? And so I can't wait for her to start writing for that. So that's
issue 2.
So that's issue 2, but I think she's actually going to do a column. It's going to be like a column in every issue. So like a chapter of her journey, but your journey as well. And I was thinking, I need to talk to Ruth about it, but I was thinking actually of opening up so that people could actually submit a photograph in that theme to be published.
Okay.
So, on crafting the soul and finding your voice. So there's just so many, these are just like, this is the story of this whole magazine. It's just all these ideas just keep coming so naturally. I'm not going to say easily, but just kind of, not effortlessly is the wrong word, but it's just without drama and without conflict. And I just feel everything just feels really right, which is kind of when the distributor came along. I just thought, yeah, this is just how this whole magazine has come together. I just thought we would be looking at getting into Barnes and Noble in, let's say issue 4 or 5. I mean, that was the dream. This is like so I'm kind of going to go, I just think it's like the universe that, people want to read these stories, and people want to contribute, and people want to tell these stories. And so I'm going to publish them for as long as I can. Yeah. That's the idea anyway.
So where does it run from then? I mean, that thing behind you gives the impression that you're just sort of like paginating it or whatever yourself. Is that what the team are doing? They're doing all that.
So we have a tiny team we're all women. So I have an incredible art director in Ireland. She's also the art director of Image Magazine and Image Interiors. And then we have an editor who's based over in Minnesota in Minneapolis. And she's actually a full-time job as an editor for something else. And these are all women that have come into my life over the last few years. And when I set kind of discreetly little feelers out, they came on board. And again, it just seemed like the most perfect fit to have these women on board. And then I have a wonderful intern, Ellie, in the UK, who, God love her, she just graduated from English I think from Bristol University. And she's locked down and can't get a job, even if she wants a job. And the day she applied to be my intern, there was somebody looking out for me. I will make an official statement here. She's an angel. And she's just so efficient. She loves spreadsheets. Oh my God. I know.
Can you share?
She is amazing. And, and I think everybody on the team is so into the project and into Fair and excited about it. That I think is also, if you talk about like energy, is fueling it all. And because I think I got pretty sick a few days ago, and I realized I hadn't had a day off since January 1st. And we're talking, but so there's a lot of hard work because there's the non-sexy side. There's the stockists, and then there's the sales, and then there's the budgeting and the accounting and the invoicing and the social media, and then there's the editing, and then there's the pitching, and so there's so many things to do that the fun, sexy bit is, the stories, but the whole kind of back end of it is full on. But I think it's like any business when you launch it, the first few months you're building systems and structures and everything, you're inventing everything from scratch, and it's really tough. But I keep saying, I just have to keep repeating this. It's going to be easier on the second.
Everything's in place.
I was just talking to Annabelle Hickson, Annabelle Hickson is this, you must know Annabelle Hickson. She's in the flower world.
We know of her.
She's a flower angel like yourselves. So Annie, I'm such a fan of Annie. So Annie came as a teacher to the last retreat that actually happened. But Annie and I were talking about making a magazine like last summer. And so we were Skyping and Zooming and egging each other on, and you should do it. No, you should do it. No, you should do it. No, you should do it. And she got the guts to do it. And she created Gala magazine, which is like, she just printed 10,000 copies of Gala.
I'm so sorry, but Tesco's is here. I've just got to go and open the door. I'm really sorry.
Before the dog eats
back in a sec. Carry on. I'm so sorry.
No problem. So, she is like an editorial, heroine of mine. So her and I have been going back and forth behind the scenes. And she just wrote to me and she said, Ruth, what did we do?
Like, what were we thinking?
She says, I feel like I'm nearly drowning. Not quite, but nearly drowning. But, it's something that we both wanted to do, and we both love the stories so much that it's not like a corporate job. It's so much more personal than that. So, but it is a lot of work. So behind me, sorry, to go back to your question. I'm such a rambler. I'm so sorry.
I just love that behind.
That's why when I did a podcast with Unpaused, she had to make it 2 parts because I just so much.
With an interval.
It was like an interval, yeah.
Sorry. Around with ice cream.
Popcorn, get your popcorn. So this is actually not even the final. This is probably the first round, but I felt I needed to put it up there to see how the stories flowed into each other, because that's the other thing, like individual stories just on their own are one thing, and then when you put it all together, like there's certain themes that start to emerge that don't necessarily emerge just on the individual PDFs. So first of all, we're all working remotely. So I'm in France, Marlene is in Ireland, and Tess is in Minnesota. They all have full-time jobs. So it's like they get home. And so Marlene gets home and let's say between 6 and 9 and then at nighttime, I don't know when she eats dinner, but like, I would like to think that we're going to lose so much weight because, we never have time to eat because we haven't eaten. Not working. But so Marlene works 6 to 9 at night. So I'm kind of on that. And then Tess is obviously like in the US. So Tess is coming on board much later as well. So it has been a bit of a juggle, but unfortunately Fair is not going to be in a position to have full-time positions for anyone till possibly next year. But we have loads of plans. We have, I say loads of plans, yeah, because it's not enough to make a magazine 4 times a year. We would like to also publish books as well.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, that's what I'm also, I mean, I don't know if anyone knows anyone making a book right now. But I know lots of people, lots of women. Yes, I know lots of women making books right now. And I know also women who have published books already and had nightmare experiences because they were young and they just didn't sign the right paperwork and stuff. So I'd love to create some kind of, actually, I think it's called Some Kind Press in Australia with Louisa Brimble. And that's like a crowdsourced, community-funded publishing house where, you know, people vote on what they'd like to see published. And it's, you know, just basically supporting creative communities with small batch books. So I don't know, there's loads of ideas, but
a background in print at all, because I'm from, my previous life was in print, so
really?
It's just quite interesting that, you know, have you gone into it with a completely, I know nothing about print and I'm just going to put all these pages together.
Yeah,
you see, but that's really interesting, isn't it? Because you kind of don't know what you don't know, so it's just you just
exactly.
put together what you need, and then everything else will kind of fall around it.
Like I feel, well, I kind of knew the basics of what, like the, you know, you need a masthead and you need a contents page.
You need some pictures and you need some words.
Pictures, you need some text, and well, no, I mean, I did kind of, obviously, Marlene has been working for 25 years in magazine, magazine editorial. But I feel because I knew absolutely nothing about the rules and the regulations, or I had no inherited rules to follow. I feel that has afforded me like a lot of freedom. And
you can question things if people say you should do it like this, but why?
Well, I mean, here's a good example. So Tess, who's a real editor, like not like me. I'm a fake editor, okay? So that's serious. That's how I'm introduced. I'm the fake editor in chief. I just throw things together, but I have a real editor, so it's all fine. So Tess is a real editor, and she works for a real magazine. And so, but she was editing the pieces, and she was editing, for example, a text, and she would say, so let's say Ruth Ribeaucourt is a magazine designer, and then the next sentence would begin, Ribeaucourt likes to do this and this, and for some this just really weirded me out. I was like, you know, I would never
written like that all of the time, isn't it?
Well, exactly. Yeah. And then I realized that actually no, all of the magazines and all of the written pieces that I respond to and I relate to, they take away that third person, and they are much more intimate. And so that's the first name. But of course, it's not the done thing. It's in journalism. There's all these rules. And so it's been really interesting to have Tess's rules kind of conflict against mine and challenge why I want something in a different way. And I mean, it's not that I've had to fight for it, but once I explained why I felt that this should be the way we should write our pieces, then it did make sense to her. But yeah, I feel like if I had known what I was going, like in the business side, I probably would have never done it. I would have been terrified, and I would have said, there's just no way we can pay for this. And then from the content point of view, I would have felt that, you know, 12 stories of 8 pages and more is just ridiculous, and nobody does that, and you're crazy. So that's the other big difference, is that it's very ad light. So we have 2 full page ads, and we have then a quarter page ad, which is really for creatives, to give them something in print, and then all of that is backed up on the website. But the features themselves are at least 8 pages long, and they will go longer, hopefully, if there's, you know, enough photography to allow for that. But 8 pages allows you to start to get to know somebody, you know, and to start to get to know really a much broader scope of their world, their work, how, you know, their creative process, and, you know, what makes them get up in the morning and want to go out and create. And nobody does that, because that's just the real estate in a magazine, to give 12 to 14 pages over to somebody and only have 2 ads in your magazine. Are you crazy?
But I think we've hit on a fundamental truth, though, that people love to hear a really in-depth, real story. I mean, I don't know if you ever listened to Desert Island Discs, but it's one of
my list of.
It's one of those shows on the radio where you just think, I don't care who it is, this is likely to be fascinating. And then you listen to the Today program and you hear somebody for a minute and you're not interested in what they've got to say, because it's not in depth, it's a sound bite. Whereas if you've got time, you can really stretch into the story, as you say, and it's fascinating.
No, I think, and people are asking me, like, why create something in print today, and I just feel that with a magazine, and I love magazines, I mean, I have so many magazines in the house, but with a magazine, I actually put everything down. I take the time and I go and I make myself a cup of coffee and I sit down and I just devour it. And there's pages that magazines I've never thrown away that I keep and I go back to. And that's something that also Annabelle Hickson and I both feel really strongly that it's not scrolling. And this, this thing that we have now with the devices. I mean, I'm desperate. I will watch a movie, but I'll also have my laptop on. And then I will also be checking my phone. And it's like you're ping-ponging and you're scrolling and I didn't want that for these stories, because not only do the stories deserve more, but the people, both from the artists who have spent a day with a photographer, or, in Lucy's case, Lucy, sat down and wrote a beautiful piece for us and then took photographs to accompany that investment and that energy, that deserves to have some time set aside and to be enjoyed and to have those stories really sink in. And I just don't think you have that anymore online. And I also believe, in terms of storytelling and the depth of storytelling, is that with Instagram, I mean, we are all being demanded to create like world-class content, and not even that word content, but content, digestible content every day. I mean, you should at least be posting every day, apparently. And, and if you don't, you're punished. And God love you if you decide to go a little bit crazy and try anything out of the norm, because you will be instantly punished and penalized. And then not only that, but, you've dared to experiment and maybe challenge yourself creatively. And you're told by some algorithm that no, stick to what you've been doing for the last few years. And I see this with, like, for example, Amy Twigger, her Instagram is @Twig Studios. And Amy, because Amy has been a teacher at some of my retreats, and nearly all of our mentors at the retreats have really felt the manipulation of Instagram and the shallowness of it, and to be forced to keep creating the same content just to please the algorithm. And then you never really get to know anybody, because they can't ever really share who they are or grow creatively. So that's what I see FAIR as a way of really just taking us deeper and talking about past the algorithm, past all these followers that we have, but the day-to-day struggles, or our confidence, or how do we get here, and really just to be able to share these stories that may well affect somebody else and change somebody else's journey, and like yours did, Lucy, on that podcast. I think it's really important that we
just pause.
Pause and share.
Where's it being printed, just out of interest?
So I mean, this is another crazy thing. Sorry, every sentence I start with it's a crazy story. So that means the big thing for me was, like, where do I print it and where do I ship it from? Because it's so expensive to ship from France. And this Annabelle Hickson found this company called Heftwerk in Germany. And Heftwerk, what I love about them is that they are specialists in independent magazines, because, in my mind, we were going to maybe make maximum 1,000 copies at the beginning, and that didn't go as planned. But they do everything from 500 copies, upwards, whereas most offset printers don't do small batch. And they also have this kind of much more friendly, hand holding technique of, bringing you along, because so many people like me have these mad ideas, notions that they want to make a magazine. They don't have a clue how to go about it. And so they were really kind and gentle, and God, I mean, they probably have had enough of me at this point, because to go from like, can you quote me for 1,000 copies? Actually, maybe 5,000. Actually, no, maybe 6,000. Maybe 8,000. Hold that. 10,000 copies.
Maybe 100,000.
I think they thought I was like some con woman from where.
Money launderer.
He called me up. He called me and said, Madame Ribeaucourt, I just want to check. Oh, you're real. He was like, this has never happened to any of the magazines we've ever printed, that they've ever printed this many, or that they've gotten distribution. So we just want to check everything's okay. And I was like, yeah, it's great.
But how fabulous is that, though? That you've got that interest, and that's the first time they've seen it as well. So
the Kickstarter.
That sold in about 2 days, didn't it?
Oh yeah. So the Kickstarter thing, I'd never done a Kickstarter before. So the Kickstarter, you either make your total and get the total, or if you get under, you don't get anything. So it is a risk, but it makes sense, because it means that you don't have to deliver something. You don't have funding. And I remember, we put so much energy and time into making that Kickstarter campaign. And I remember pushing the button. I didn't even open my eyes. I thought I was going to vomit. I was like, ugh. And then the minute I pushed the button and you can't change the total, I was like, oh my God, I should have said 5,000. I should have said 2,000. Of course, for me, I had to say the cost of the magazine, because I thought if you're not, that's really important, is the transparency to it as well. I was like, this is how much it costs to print 5,000 copies, plus your art director and all of the other, business costs and all the rest. And so I did contact everybody I've ever met in my whole life. And I even signed up to my secondary school alumni on LinkedIn.
You've not seen me for 30 years, but
literally, hi! I didn't go to the last 2 reunions, but listen, I've got a story to tell you. I am launching the magazine, so would you share? So I think it was on day 2, Kickstarter picked it up as best and brightest publishing project. And 4 days into the campaign, we got our target, and that was such a relief, because first of all, it meant that it was worth doing. Because if I hadn't gotten it, I would have just gone, you know what, Ruth, it was just in your head, but it's fine. You flirted with the idea, and it's just not the right time, or whatever it is as well. Because it's like we're in the middle of a pandemic. Half the shops in the world are closed. So, it's no big deal. If it doesn't fly, at least you tried. So getting that was like, wow, people want to read these stories, and there's an interest. And so when I knew that we'd gotten the goal, that really was, okay, we can do this, And so Heftwork, the other great thing about them is that they are green energy, FSC certified paper. The whole plant is powered off green energy. And I have to say, from a business point of view, when they sent me their shipping costs from Germany, there's probably the cheapest shipping cost from Europe. That's when the magazine actually became real, because there was no way that I could create a magazine, which is already quite expensive because it's a beautiful paper and it's a substantial magazine, and then have the shipping cost be 20 euros or something. I just thought that's going to kill the whole concept dead in the water. So, because that's the other thing, to be realistic, I have most of my readers are in Australia and America, the UK and Netherlands, I think the Netherlands, and Canada. So I had to be able to distribute it to those territories in a economical enough way. So Heftwork have a fulfillment as well. So they really had the whole service and it was like this piece of the puzzle that until they came along, I couldn't even fathom how I could make it happen. But of course, then, once I had discovered them, all of these other people started to, all these pieces of the publishing puzzle came together. Like, all these other fulfillment people that could come in at cheaper cost, or printers who could do it cheaper. I mean, I actually had a bidding war for printers, which was, I have never, I mean, I can't even negotiate at the flea market if I love something. I was like, 20 euros. Okay, take my money. But I'm not a good negotiator. But here I just said, listen, this guy's offering it to me for like half the price. I really want to work with you, but you know, you gotta see my side of things. And so it was like a bidding war to work with us. And Heftwork won really because not because they were the cheapest, but really because they were just the loveliest to work with, the most human to work with. And I want all of the elements of this to be kind of as pleasant and non-toxic as possible. No pun intended, because they do use non-toxic inks in their printing.
So when is the magazine available? So it's available to buy now, isn't it, on your website?
You can pre-order, but it's not going to be printed. Well, I say it's not going to be. It's going to be printed. It's going to print next week. And I can't travel to Germany because apparently France is high risk. So I have one of our artists, creatives. Her name is Katrina Herold. I think I posted about her. She is a curator, gallerist, such a great person. She lives in Hamburg. Oh yeah, I'm not making this up. Hamburg. She's going to jump on a train and she's going to Berlin and she's going to film the proofing process.
Exciting.
That used to be my job. I used to love all that. So I really want to see all that.
I would love to go. But it's just, I would have to quarantine for 8 days in a Berlin hotel. So it's just not good. It's not worth it. So she's going to do that for me. Fabulous. I know. I mean, I didn't even know that was part of the process, but I'm going to miss it this time. But you know, I have Katrina's is going to film it for social media. We're going to have a live experience. So, and Sebastian of Heftwork, he said, well, you can always come for issue 2. I said, you're right, Sebastian. I will come for issue 2.
So when can people have it? When is it going to reach doors?
So it's actually going to ship out to anyone who's pre-ordered it or subscribed for the year. It ships on the 2nd of April. Technically, officially goes on sale on the 7th. Then for Barnes & Noble and Books A Million in the US, that's a bit more convoluted because it ships by sea freight. So it can take 5 to 6 weeks. So they won't probably have it till mid-May. But if you are one of my independent stockists, and I love all my independent stockists, I am best friends with all my independent stockists. I'm sending all my independent stockists free postcards because I love them so much. And they will be getting theirs air freight, and they will have theirs on the 7th of April.
Right.
And so like the funniest thing for me, so I didn't really have a niche, you know, like, oh, this is going to be next to this magazine on the shelf. But the niche for the magazine is the craft world, but like an elevated craft. And so it's not going to go in beside Elle decor, and it's not aspirational. This is like celebrating the unsung heroes of craft and artisanal and creative arts. And so the people that have responded the most, which I had no idea, are like craft shops and yarn shops around the world. They are just so into fair. And this is like a whole other side of the business side, is that when you have stockists who are really into what you're selling and your product and I'm really excited about, I mean, they're doing my job for me. They're sharing it, and they're even taking pre-orders. So 2 or 3 of my stockists have sold out all their pre-orders.
That's amazing.
And are ordering more. And okay.
Sebastian, it's gone up to 1,000.
Sebastian, can you give me a quote for 15,000? No. He did give me a quote, and I was like, nope, we're not going there. We are not going there, because my distributor was like, well, you know, we could go up to this amount of. I was like, yes, we could, but we can't.
Because I won't sleep.
Yeah, we can't. We got no money. It's going to be a 1-issue magazine if we go anymore. So let's build slightly slower. So yeah, so we'll see. Because Barnes & Noble, they are really into it. Barnes & Noble apparently, I think Flow is one of the top magazines in the kind of craft section. And then they sell a lot of craft magazines. So like the craft world, and I had no idea, the craft magazine world is like a big market. Yeah. It's a really big market, and they're loving the concept of fair. Yeah. So it's not DIY, and it's not like there's no pull out patterns or anything. It's just, and that's another thing, is I want to have a story on, a very different story in every issue. So there will probably not, well, actually, when I say that, there's probably 2 stories on flowers, because I love flowers in the first issue.
You can't have too many flowers.
I'm talking to the right people here. But I mean, just people, I suppose, people who go out and connect with nature and don't need to go to a big fancy flower shop, but they can create beauty. And I think, so it's not just floral design, it's about going out and seeing the beauty in the world, and then bringing that home, even if it's a simple, branch of a tree, or that's kind of more what I'm searching to share, those types of stories. And
you see the branches of trees behind me.
I can. I love the back of your screen. Yeah, you know what? I actually fully intended to go out and chop half a tree for this podcast. So I just have metal paper flowers and lots of feathers, and I thought, you know what?
They were all quite beautiful, though.
Yeah. So the idea will be that there'll be one kind of art form per there won't be duplicate art forms in each issue. So in that sense, there will be something for everyone. So you could be really into flowers, but you'll also love all the other stories and the food. I mean, we have a wonderful food story from a Swedish oyster diver who which is not as stereotypical atelier story. It's more about someone stepping out of a fast-paced city world and diving into the like freezing cold ocean and diving for oysters and finding themselves under the ocean, and then going out into all the top restaurants in Sweden and bringing these oysters into those restaurants and collaborating with chefs. And so there'll be something for everyone, and I'm already working on issue 2, obviously, and issue 3 and issue 4 and issue 5. But issue 2, I'm just, I literally started to cry when there's a wonderful embroidery artist from Ireland, Domino Whisker, who is also caring for her father who has advanced Alzheimer's. And she talks of how she actually found her voice whilst guiding her father's hand to create works of art at the beginning of his Alzheimer's. And so she was his guide and his conduit, but also that ended up allowing her to find her own voice. And it's I'm just getting goosebumps.
Yes, am I.
Thinking about this. But the photography is so fabulous. And the thing is about the photography, I don't want perfect. I want emotion and that we see the emotion. And it's really important for me that a photographer has that gift of an experience with that creative, and vice versa. And then that is a conversation and a collaboration. And that's really exciting to me as well. So unfortunately, Lucy had to do the work on both sides.
She had to talk to herself.
Lucy, could you just turn to the side?
What do you think about this, Lucy?
The worst bit was trying to say, Ruth kept saying, we need photographs of you. And I'm like, well, it's just me. So I'd have to set the timer, then run round and try and look all nonchalant.
Yeah, it's just like
stood there
you do, don't
you? Well, no, I have, this is a big sheet. I hate getting my photograph taken, but I've tethered on my Canon. So you can actually link it up to your iPhone or your iPad or whatever it is. And so you just hide it and you just turn and then you just click and and like 500 photos later, the right one.
Exactly.
I hate getting my photo taken.
Photoshop's amazing.
Oh yeah. No, it's 500 photos later. No, I'm really. It is a kind of like a roll, like a train trying to roller coaster. I have all these metaphors in my head. It's like it is a train that once it's departed the station, and it just gets this momentum. And issue 2 is just, there's so many incredible stories already coming in for issue 2.
Is it quarterly?
It's going to be it's a quarterly, yeah. And I think this is another interesting thought you might like to know. This little bit of info. So when I've been reaching out to photographers, a lot of the photographers are telling me that magazines for them these days, because so many of them have been bought over by big companies. Not only are they controlled by the advertisers, but also and the shareholders, but the stories have to fit into a certain framework, and so basically they're clearly on automatic pilot when they go to do these shoots. They know that they need the portrait, and they know that they need that shot, and they need that shot, and they'll never really have more than 3 or 4 photographs shared. So as much as they want to really take more photographs, they know that none of them will be used. So I've had a really great response from photographers who are so excited to have the scope of like 8+ pages to really tell this story and develop the story. But also some of them have been telling me that there are magazines now that will take their photography and then they will require them to apply a filter to it, so that all of the photography in the magazine is just homogenized. And I think that is so depressing to me. It's, make it digestible, make it look beigey, warmy, beigey thing. And how horrific to ask photographers to have to do that to their work in the first place. But also that is what, one of the top selling home magazines in France is doing right now. So none of the I am not asking anybody to apply a filter, because I just think it's disrespectful. But also the joy is the richness in the magazine is the fact that you have all of these completely different stories, completely different aesthetics, completely different schools of photography. When I say schools of photography, it means many of them are self-taught, but it's about the emotion and not about the perfection.
It's all part of the art, isn't it? It's all just to change that is just completely missing the point for your sort of magazine, really.
Well, why? Well, if we were creating a creative magazine that celebrates creatives, and then we're reducing everybody's photographs to look the same. But this is what is going on with magazines today. And so like Annabelle Hickson for Gala, her magazine has 0 ads. And it's really based on a model of building community and respecting readers and really just getting the best of content. I hate that word, sorry. But, really just delivering content that people really want to read and they can't wait for the next issue, as opposed to trying to please so many different people with so many different things. I don't know that. It's just that wasn't a model that worked for us anyway. So
it sounds beautiful. I'm going to sign up as soon as we've finished here.
Oh, I will send you some postcards.
We will put a link to everyone we've mentioned on our website as well, because there's loads and loads of people you've mentioned. So we'll make sure there's a link to all those.
Absolutely, I love that. I love sharing all of my friends, and
it'll be quite a long list of links.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Somebody going to go through it and then tell me, because or you'll give me a list of, or maybe will I listen to it again and go through it? Or I will figure it out.
I go through it and I make a list.
I'll just have to put a week aside next week. Myself cooking again. Oh God, no. I do love. We see the other thing about living in France. I don't get to talk to anybody in English. I have to, put on this fancy French accent and then pretend to communicate with my children.
Well, we usually at the end of our podcast, Ruth, we ask 5 questions.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. So it's usually quite quick fire. But
famous last words.
So the glasses are going on.
Oh my God, I'm terrified.
Right, you ready?
Yes. Hit me up.
Phone call or text?
Text. I hate the phone. I hate the phone.
Do you ever look at your phone and think, why are you ringing me? Just text me.
Yeah, I actually am the worst. I hate the phone. Do you know, I think it's because I was attached to my BlackBerry for years with Disney. It's kind of, but I'm literally attached to it all day long with Instagram and all the social media. But well, do you know what? I think I'm probably terrified that I'm going to stay on for 2 hours. So, and I know that I don't have the time. I cannot. That's why I'm a crappy editor. I cannot edit anything. Even my emails are practically essays. You know this, Lucy. I have so much to tell you. Wait till you hear.
Yes, but I'm the same. The girls always laugh at me because I'm like, I have to tell a story, but then I have to tell the backstory to the backstory to the backstory.
Yeah.
And then she forgets what she's telling
And then I
us.
forget what the end was anyway. So
3 cups of tea later.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Pop or country?
Oh, I love country music.
Yeah,
We're talking about
I like
Really?
I was like, this isn't a cocktail we're talking about.
Yeah, I was trying to work out.
Pop or
That's
country? I
random.
love country. Do you know who I love to listen to? The Highway Women. I think that's the name of them. Do you know there's so much music that I have on my my Spotify
Yeah,
that I
listen on Spotify.
I couldn't tell you the names of
No.
the songs.
No.
Well, I mean, I love country, but I do love some pop as well.
Okay, a bit of both then. We'll let you have.
Like, can I just say, Christine and the Queens?
Oh,
I nearly cursed it. Harry Styles.
oh, yes.
Somebody directed me to his Grammy performance, and that was me gone on Google for about an hour trying to find the full video because they were only showing me 20 seconds because it was not allowed in my country. So of course, like when something is banned, you know, you have to
I
find
need
it.
to write that down.
Have I got to put a link to Harry Styles on the website now?
Oh, yeah, do.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
Here's another link. So Harry Styles performing at the Grammys wearing a Gucci leather jacket.
Oh.
And sorry, this is awful. I am objectifying Harry Styles. I just loved his music.
Yeah, no, I think it's very good. So we have the same taste there. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Big party or small gathering?
Small gathering. But I wouldn't be adverse after like my 5th gin and tonic that like another 20 people join.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's kind of how it always happens. Like my husband constantly organizes a surprise birthday party for me every year.
Not so
And I
surprising.
don't know why. I mean, that's not the other thing, because I'm born on the 22nd of July, so there was never anybody that I knew that was ever at my birthday party. In fact, my mother invited the entire population of a foreign summer school to my birthday one year. And I remember arriving, you know, into the house, and there was all these strangers, and that traumatized me, I think. For many. So I actually hate my birthday, but my husband loves parties. So he actually organizes a surprise party for me.
That isn't a surprise. That's all.
Well, it can constantly kind of catch. Well, put it this way: I am never dressed properly or have my hair washed. It's always a surprise. But I will catch on one of these days. Well, last year I got away with it because of COVID. Yes. It was great. I'm all for confinement on the 22nd of July. Okay.
Okay.
That question, Lucy.
I've got 2 more. Trainers or sandals?
Oh. Like high heel sandals?
If you want. You like high heels?
Well, I used to love them because I'm really short, but I can't wear them since I moved to Lacoste because it's all like medieval cobblestone. You know, it's awful.
Someone's got to live
life. I can't wear my Lanvin 8-inch heels anymore. So now I actually live in Birkenstocks, but Birkenstocks and Vans. So I actually wear both. So because it's so hot here, like it can get up to in the 40s in July and August. It's pretty unbearable. So yeah, you would be talking sandals. I wear like Birkenstocks probably from May until October, and then I know it's awful, sorry. And then I wear runners all winter long, autumn, winter, early spring. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I went from being like, I spent all my money when I worked in Walt Disney on designer handbags and designer shoes, and then I got pregnant and my feet went up an entire size and never went back down again. So I have all these shoes that just don't fit me and that I spent so much money on. And then since moving to France, it's all about, Provence is all about practicality. It's too hot and the villages are not conducive to high heels.
Yeah.
So. eBay, maybe.
Sell
eBay.
them.
Yeah, like whenever it gets a bit slow around here, I am selling all my
That's never gonna happen, is it?
No, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
But I keep saying
That
it will.
word doesn't happen in your household.
I totally agree. I will be on eBay as soon as I get a window.
Maybe if the 300 days doesn't kick in time.
Exactly. No, literally, I'd say come next. Watch this space. It's going to get really tight around October, November time. We're like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for issue 4? And they're going to see all these designer shoes on eBay. Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm making a note. Good idea.
Okay, last one. Classical or modern art?
Actually,
is that really difficult?
Okay, so I love 18th century, because that's, I'm just classy like that. No, I knew nothing about 18th century, but I love 18th century. I love Art Deco, and I love mid-century. Now, what works in my house, I could buy the most beautiful, like gold leaf, or, things like, beautiful antiques. I will put them in my house and they will look absolutely ridiculous. So if I buy mid-century, or even like 40s, 50s, that's something I can live with. So I realized that that's actually art that reflects us as a family. But I love buying crumbling old paintings and I don't know, I think it's not really for me about one era or not. It's really about the particular piece. Like there is at the flea market. If you ever come over,
you're on the list.
I live in. I didn't know anything about antiques before I moved here, but I live in this like 20 minutes from the 3rd biggest antiques center in Europe, Ile-sur-le-Sorgue. But I don't go there. I go where all the dealers source. But I mean, you could be walking past hundreds and hundreds of paintings, and I do. But there's so at the start it's overwhelming, and you buy everything and you're broke. But then eventually you learn, to kind of your eye gets more refined. So now there's just something. It's like everything, there's just something in a piece that just calls to you. I don't know if you can I put this up for you actually, because it's got flowers in it. And this normally hangs in here. It's this huge piece.
Fabulous.
Beautiful.
Which I got for 60 euros. And it's like, I think it's 1920s. But I go with whatever moves me.
I think that's the best thing.
You just have to
just go with what you like.
Yeah, I don't buy what I can resell. That's never, I actually always buy for me. And then if I find that it's just not fitting in my house, or it's not moving me anymore, then I know that it's time to let it go. So that's why that's how I survived lockdown. I did. I would like to say I sold a lot of my belongings, but I probably only sold like a fraction. Our house is coming down with stuff, but
I built a few.
Well, it's just so hard. There's so many beautiful things at the Brocon. There's so many beautiful things, and then there's also so many things that are very rare or becoming rarer, and so those are the things that are harder to turn away from, because you just know that in, let's say, 2 years that you might not see those types of things again. Like the really beautiful rustic hemp and linen sheets, not like the monogram stuff. There's quite a lot of it still around, but the raw kind of poorer, there's a term for it, arte povere, which is the art of the poor, which I kind of talked about a little bit, is something that I love. Is like the things that the poorer people surrounded themselves with. So again, it goes back to that idea of creating beauty even if you don't have a lot of money, and just going out and making something with your hands, or gathering a bunch of flowers from the garden. And so I think that's really something that I'm attracted to, not necessarily like, I think that goes back to my house is not like over the top gold leaf 18th century everything. It's more about like visible repairs and things that have honest lived in, storied things that I find in the market. I know that wasn't very rapid.
Fast fascinating.
I can't imagine your surprise.
Oh, Ruth, it's been so fascinating talking to you.
Yeah,
It really has. Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm so sorry. I don't feel like we've had a conversation. I just feel like I've just been so delighted to talk to somebody in my own language that I have just like talked and talked and talked and talked.
Well, we're just so pleased you have, because it's fascinating.
It was,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Oh, thank you. And I'm just so genuinely thrilled that Lucy is in.
Oh,
issue
thank you so
1.
much. Can't wait for it to come
Like,
out. It's going to
The
be
universe, the universe is incredible. The way it does connect people.
Yeah.
And as much as we complain about Instagram, I do feel like it connects us. Even when we live in these tiny rural cut off areas, it brings us not just to an audience, but to like fellow soulmates and spirits that we can connect with and that make our world make sense.
Yes, I think that's the key thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finding fellow crazies who love your stuff.
I love that.
I totally accept. I am nuts. I think like that's one great thing about getting a little bit older is like you realize that I was talking to Ruth Stedman yesterday. I never really fitted in, and I was always struggling with that. But now I look back and I go, well, of course I never fitted in.
I'm exactly the same.
So nuts, but I'm delighted that this is who I am, and that my friends are the people that I found my friends, and
you found your tribe.
Yeah. I mean, it's and I think you don't need like 200 best friends. You just need to have people who really get you. Somebody posted a quote on Instagram that resonated with me, but it was like, surround yourself. I'm paraphrasing. Surround yourself with. I'm going to really ruin this now. With people who will like big you up in a crowded room and talk about how wonderful you are. Oh no, a room full of opportunities that somebody else will put you forward for something. I think I totally wrecked that quote.
I think we get the essence.
It sounded better in my head. Add that to the list of quotes that I should.
If you send it to me, I'll put it on my website.
I think if you just edit my words and put them in the right order,
cut and paste.
But no, as in like if surround yourself with people who will put you forward for opportunities rather than put themselves forward first of all. Yeah, like a circle of really great friends, and that's kind of. That comes with age, and it's wonderful.
So.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It doesn't, and thank God it doesn't happen. I think it doesn't happen earlier because we wouldn't be ready for it. So yeah, I'm delighted. Anyway,
it's been
I've
fascinating.
answered all of your questions.
Thank you so much. It's been brilliant.
Tune in tomorrow for part 2.
Might be part 3 and 4. We might have to do part 1 and 2 in there.
Yes, I think we need to have you back and talk about part 2.
Yeah, I feel like we've only scraped the surface.
I think so.
No, I think what you're doing is fantastic, because I think we are all craving this camaraderie and conversation and just connecting. It's like we are also in our heads and our own bubbles for so long now that can be really hard to, I mean, especially in the UK, but it can be so hard to now get ourselves out of that. So this is wonderful to have this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Well,
and
thank you for being with us.
No, it's been delightful.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Delightful. But anyway, will I let you go? Will I let you go back to your beautiful gardens?
Mud. That's where
and our gardener has stopped streaming for 2 hours. He's basically gone home.
He's just been sat down all the time you've been talking.
He's having a pastis. He's having a nice pastis, I'd say. The hedge is going to go like this now after his 2-hour pastis break. He's already trimmed the hedge. We're okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruth. Be in touch.
Let's talk soon.
Yeah.
Take care.
A weekly occurrence. I'll go so much to do. But anyway, lovely to talk to you all.
It's so lovely to speak to you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You've been listening to the Restless Creatives podcast. To ensure you don't miss our next episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Restless Creatives podcast. If you'd prefer to listen rather than watch us, you can catch us on one of your favoured podcast providers. For more sneak peeks and behind-the-scenes fun, visit our Instagram at the.restlesscreatives or visit our website, therestlesscreatives.co.uk.